Hello, welcome to the One Question Leadership Podcast. This is Tangela Cheatham, Deputy Athletics Director for Administration and Senior Women's Administrator at Central Michigan University. My goal as a leader is to provide those around me the opportunity to grow and develop in the way that works best for them, and helping provide the tools for them to do so for the betterment of the student athletes we serve, and for themselves as both people and professionals. Over the course of my life, I've had the opportunity to develop my leadership philosophy, and I'm grateful for leadership development programming, like the NCAA Dr. Charles Whitcomb Leadership Institute, for providing the opportunity for me to connect with other professionals from Division I to Division III who are also growing as leaders. Through the Institute, I've been able to continue my growth as a leader, and I hope to continue having the opportunity to empower others. I hope you enjoy this episode of the One Question Leadership Podcast.
Greetings, this is Ty Brown, and welcome to the One Question Leadership Podcast, where we highlight executive and organizational leadership. Be sure to follow us on Twitter and Instagram at 1Q Leadership. Our guest today is Alvin Hines II. Alvin is the Senior Associate Athletics Director for Revenue Generation at Florida Atlantic University. Greetings, Alvin. Thanks for joining us.
Greetings, Ty. Thanks so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Yes, sir. Now, you've been at Florida Atlantic since 2018, spent time at Missouri, college football playoff, and the American Athletic Conference in the industry for almost 10 years now. So have a wealth of experience. You've seen a different styles of leadership and have a different varied list of experiences. So I'm happy to have you on here on the podcast.
Absolutely.
Starting off, I guess the CFP and American Atlantic, those were internships, right? I know with CFP, you kind of helped with operations. What did you do in your time at the American?
Yeah. Very similar to the college football playoff. My time at the American was really focused on championship operations. That's why the job at the CFP actually was a great fit for me.
Right.
Just because I, again, was a football player, a college football player. Obviously, I wanted to get into, that experience from being with a big bowl office or a big conference office that's strictly focused on football. So that's the reason why the CFP was such a great opportunity for me. But at the American, I ran championships and did administration. So did postseason championships, oversaw some sports and some coaches groups.
Right.
And it's really just help operate the postseason championship experience for the student athletes there at the conference office.
Right. And you go off to Missouri, and it looks like you right off the bat, first full-time job was in development.
Yep.
Tell me what you believe they saw in you in terms of sliding you in that position to get you on a path in development here in the industry.
Yeah, it was actually unique how I got to the University of Missouri. I actually met Ryan Alpert, who at the time was at the University of Memphis. And so he was in the conference office, and that's when I was running championships. I was running the tennis championship actually out at Tulsa, Oklahoma. And so him and another guy named Jay Bad, obviously now Georgia Tech, had a great opportunity of networking with those guys and talking with those guys. It's about the opportunity of development. What is fundraising? What does it do? Again, I was a former student athlete, and I really didn't even know, that there was so much work to be done on this side of college athletics. And so that was when the entry point of development got introduced to me. And then I was to continue to talk to people. I know Michael Kelly now that at USF was also a good component of that. He was at the CFP when I was there. And talking with him, he also recommended, hey, you should consider development, given your skill set, given your personality, given the things that we do know about you. I think that development would be a great place for you to start on campus. Want to be an athletic director, and so obviously the industry norm at the time definitely and still is to come up through the development track. And so Ryan Alpert gave me my opportunity. Him and Brian White gave me my opportunity at the University of Missouri, and started as assistant director, annual fund. Answering the phones and started matriculating through that process. And so then went to a major gift officer. And then, yes, now I've been here at FAU for about 5 years. So,
yeah, which is interesting. If you think back to the recommendations they were giving you, do you recall them identifying the specific skill sets that they said would make you great for development?
Yeah, majority of them definitely mentioned the personality standpoint, just being able and having just kind of the knack to connect with people. I enjoy connecting with people. I think that it's something that was definitely would serve me very, very well on this side of it. I'm more opposed to the operational, a little bit more of the internal side as well. And so the thing for them was I was always chatting with them about, hey, what do you see the next best step for me, right? You guys are they're older, you have established careers. Michael Kelly obviously is one, has ran Super Bowl committees and have
Right.
been senior associate at a lot of places, and so getting their expertise, and each one of them said about personality. It really is about a fit in your personality. It seems that you would excel in development. Multiple people have said it. People at other conference offices like, oh, I think you should try out development, just because again, based on the personality of kind of with my external outgoing personality, I'm assuming, and so it's definitely a great fit. It works for me. I enjoy the work. I really enjoy connecting with multitude of donors, internal people, external people. It's been really fun, and so I can definitely see that they were right when they said this is a
In
good
terms of
career fit for me. They definitely were right.
how it would fit. Yeah. I wonder about one thing I wonder is, we go through our careers and we may think we're good at something or we may identify something that's easy to us, but then we are surrounded by a number of different leaders who start pointing out things to us, right?
Right.
And at some point, if that wasn't the thing we already knew about ourselves, we probably should start leaning into that thing that other people were pointing out. So I wonder, was there a point during your career, either when they pointed it out or within yourself when you realize, I'm kind of good at relating to people. And this is actually a skill set I probably need to develop. Has that thought ever occurred to you?
Yeah. Well, like I said, I guess graduating from Stanford, starting in the American, when I was in the American, two, three people, some people in the conference office, some people on campus told me
Said
the
it to
same
you, right?
thing. Hey, you should look into development. I think you'll be really good at it. Move to the CFP. Again, two, three people in key positions, people that I'm looking up to, saying, "Hey, you have the personality, you have the kind of the look, the gift for it, right? Like you just, it seems like you will do well in revenue generation. You will do well on the external side of the house of athletics." And so, I think it just again was just consistently being around them and consistently hearing that narrative that I even started looking at like, okay, well, let's figure out what more do I need to do in development? Michael Kelly talked to me about it there. He put me actually in contact with Zach Solomon now, who's at Mississippi State. He and I had a good phone conversation. And that was the moment where I said, okay, I actually think I do like this work. And sight unseen. I wouldn't know much more about it besides what people were telling me. I didn't have any internships in development. I just showed up, and told what the guys before me were doing. They were saying, "Hey, let's answer the phones. Let's start connecting with donors. Let's get more people involved." And I was like, "Hey, I actually enjoy it." And I realized that I've been doing it for a while, right? I did it. I did this back in college when I was in my fraternity, and I had to start raising money in the fraternity. I did it in high school actually when I was raising money for our high school football program, and it was easy to me. Going door to door, knocking on the door, asking them to buy a $20 gift card. I used to kill it. I was one of the top sellers, and I didn't realize that I actually had a really really good gift in this terms of selling and just being on the external side. And so it actually had been building for a while. I just didn't know it. Until a lot of leaders told me that I should explore that avenue.
Right. So I'm gonna take a step back here, right?
Okay.
So the leaders identified the trait that would be good in development. The question for you is, at what point did you identify that I actually have this good trait? Not necessarily the trait of sales, but the trait of relating to people, right?
Yeah.
Is there a point when you realize I am good at relating to people, not having to do with sales, just relating to people in general? And then B, since that point when you realized that, if you did, how have you tried to sharpen that skill in terms of relating to people, right? There's always, how can you get better at that types of
Yeah.
question?
Yeah, getting better at that is very is definitely tough. I mean, I guess
Okay.
the as I said, the best training is on-site training, and
Right.
so
So you're just
I
doing
think
it,
I got
right?
a lot better at it when I started getting into fundraising even more. Right, when I was submersed in it, my day to day is to relate to people, to connect with people. But yeah, for me, it started at a very young age.
Yeah.
And again, it was started off when I even started thinking about it a couple of days ago. I was talking to a donor on the phone and relating to people, and we're just cycling through thoughts and conversations, and I started realizing, I'm like, oh well, I've actually been fundraising for a long time, right?
Right.
This just didn't start back in 2016 when I got to the University of Missouri. This actually started when I was in high school. This started when I was in middle school. I think the big dawning moment was college. When it in Sanford had a very unique situation at in terms of Greek life, but I was kind of really the leading charge on getting the recharter happening at Sanford to recharter our
Okay.
chapter. And so I had to talk to people internally. I had to talk to the national office. I had to talk to other chapters in the city on getting things together, getting resources together. And that's when I started realizing that I had that I wanted to be into business. That was where the first spark for me was like, all right, I think sports business is where I really want to be. Given my background in sports, being a football student athlete, being a baseball student athlete at Sanford, and then I started getting the business side, the resource gathering side of it through the fraternity, through just being on campus and being a part of organizations on campus. That was when it all sparked. Now the minutia, exactly what area of sport I didn't know, but I
Right.
did know that I wanted to be a part of sports business, and that's when it all really sparked off for me.
Yeah, right. And things just start happening, right? You
Yep,
realize, oh, okay, I'm good at this. And then actually I have some experience at this, and then things start falling into place.
yep,
And it's always great when other leaders recognize the skill in you and then they start recommending and nudging you to go in that direction. Happened with me at the AFCA in terms of education and educating people on whatever the topic is, specifically leadership for me. So 100%. So thinking about coming into the industry full time, getting into development, uh, especially relatively recent, right? In your time at Florida Atlantic, I mean, do they give you a database and say, here's your list of people, or do they say call these numbers first, or is it the first time that you called $100 million donor, or like, oh, let's see what we can do here? Like, talk to me about that process of just diving in to what they
yeah.
put in front of you.
Yeah, the process is different at every school. The
Yeah,
process of diving in at Missouri was completely different than diving here at FAU.
yeah,
Missouri, they had, I mean, potentially close to 9,000, $10,000 donors. I mean, it was a portfolio that was already set. You came in, they gave you a list of 300 people. You started making calls and
okay,
making those personal touches with people, introducing
right,
yourself, saying hello. Um, Now here, it was completely separate. Right, I showed up. I had a portfolio of 100 people. All of them giving not very high. And again, it was the same process. So let's start calling and let's start moving. Let's start moving donors up the ladder. Let's start getting them in more involved. Let them know who you are. Um, Talking with them over pushing the impact of supporting, and we've grown it. We really have actually had a really good opportunity. When we first got here, I think we had 275 donors. Now we have over 1,000. Literally in 5 years, we've gained almost 800 donors in 5 years, and it again is about the work that you're doing. It's about getting the community. It's about being visible. And so the work here was a little different than it was at Missouri, but it
right,
is
yeah,
definitely about, pick up the phone, getting on the phone, finding ways to get in front of people, and to share the brand of FAU. And then the more people that see you, they more hear your passion, the more people who want to get involved and start supporting in whatever capacity. If that's just season tickets, if it's capital campaign, if it's big donations, pretty much can do it all. And so it's just about building the FAU brand strongly. And so, yep, did it brick by brick, donor by donor. It was,
yeah. You say something interesting there. So here they give you a list of people to call that have given in whatever form or fashion, right?
hmm
And, from that point, you've seen it grow to increase the number of donors. So is there an aspect of your role, or has there been an aspect of your role of talking to people who are potential donors or just alumni and then, for the lack of a better word, turning them into donors there at Florida Atlantic? Yep.
yeah. Yeah, yeah. I mean, pretty much when you start having to create your own pipeline, that's kind of
Okay.
basically what we're talking about in
Yeah.
development is creating your own pipeline. You do that through a lot of different avenues, right? You do that once you start by season ticket holders. You start by those that are already given money.
Okay.
And so season ticket holders are a really great way of starting, right? So figuring out, you know, sometimes you can either just take the top end of your season ticket holder base, who's spending the most money with us.
Right.
Those who are spending the most money with us probably have the most capacity, will be able in turn to maybe make a donation. And so you start finding those who may want different experiences. A lot of our annual fund benefits are geared off, different experiences throughout the year, on-field experience. You want to get into the donor club. And then so you start just leveraging that and saying, hey, well, if you want to get into the club, it's $2,500. Hey, if you want to be able to get on the field, that's $5,000 annual. and then being able to bridge those experiences and kind of leverage those experiences, as you would say. So, yeah, it all starts, it all starts with those who are already given. So I would say current donors,
Mhm.
even if you're given $500 or you're given 1,000, target them, try to get them up to the next level, and then start with your season ticket holders. So yeah, we've had to build our own pipeline here,
Okay.
because again, the brand of FAU is young. I mean, the school started in the '60s. Football started back in '01, so we actually
Right.
haven't had, and we got an on-campus stadium in 2011. So you think about just the youth of the program in general.
Hmm.
It is definitely young. So it wasn't that we had a big established fan base when we got in here. We've had to grow that, and it's been fun doing it. It really has.
Yeah, that's interesting. In terms of donors and experiences, you give a certain amount, you get this experiment, you get this experience, you get this amount, you get this experience. Are there donors who ask for something that you don't necessarily offer, right? You get somebody who's creative, to say they're entrepreneurs. I'm like, okay, yeah, on the field, but really that's not really what I'm looking for. Like, what else do you have? Or do they approach you with like, look, I'm willing to do this if you're willing to do this? Like, tell me about the creativity aspect that donors come with,
Absolutely.
or that you can offer in terms of creativity.
Yeah, no, I think sometimes some of your best ideas come from donors. I
Okay.
mean, they do. A lot of your best ideas come from people in the industry. Chatting with other friends and buddies that you have at other schools, listening to what they do. But a lot of our ideas have come from donors where, again, they like to have fun. They love the stewardship side of it. They're looking for ways to enhance the game day as well. And they'll come to me and be like, hey, Alvin, have you guys considered this? And I'm like, we haven't considered it, but that's a great idea. And next thing you know, I'm on the phone texting our deputy, texting our AD, like, hey, what are your thoughts on adding this premium area? Yeah, yeah, no, no, this can happen, this can't. Let's figure out a way to make it happen because there's something that we can monetize there. And so yeah, I definitely think, especially here, you've gotten a lot of ideas from your donors and things that you're hearing what they want, and then you can be able to start, and mainly if one wants it, a few more will like it too.
Right.
And
Right.
so it's usually good to kind of listen to your donors, and that's why they always say kind of the leadership, right? The leadership cabinet, your top end donors are the ones that sometimes leading the programs because you are taking their ideas and you're trying to implement them. One, because there's going to be an ROI because they're going to support it, but two, that again, if you do it, they're going to be appreciative. They're going to tell their buddies. Now all of a sudden, it starts to spread like wildfire, and you're just getting a lot of people involved in whatever you develop. So,
Is there an aspect of, and this is where you're educating me, right? In terms of on campus, is there an aspect of creativity from you or people in a similar position you are where you are creating new things for donors? Or does that come from some type of marketing or PR or like the powers that be? Or does it come from you guys like, look, this thing is wide open here. We might be able to monetize this for our donors. Like, tell me about that aspect of the
oh,
role.
for sure, for sure.
Yeah.
I think as a fundraiser, one of your biggest jobs is to find a way to leverage your campus, find a
Okay.
way to leverage your space, find a way to leverage pretty much any and everything that you can do. And so, it's that's like walking around the basketball arena and then you're seeing a room that's over to the side and you're like, hey, this room is not being used. Like, no, it's not. Oh, well, we should turn this into a donor
Yeah. Let's
lounge,
do something here,
right?
right? Yeah.
On the field here at FAU, we had a lot of space in our end zones. Behind the goalposts, and we've now put in, let's see, I believe it is six plus, so we've already put in 15 cabanas on the field,
Okay.
on field cabanas, right? I'm
Yeah.
not sure where the idea even sparked that, but for us to be able to start monetizing that space and figuring out saying, hey, we could put a cabana right here that was not existing and charge $14,000 a cabana, and now all of a sudden that's generating revenue off space that was just unutilized at one point. So
Yeah.
there is definitely a lot of creativity from from the donor, I mean, from the development officer side, but it's also some collaborative with the marketing department saying, hey, we should do this cool idea. We should be able to, for baseball, we want to do this. We have this deck out in baseball. We want to monetize. And then the fundraisers will come over and say, oh, yeah, this would be a great cost for this. We see how it starts to fit into our donor plans.
Right. Yeah.
But yeah, there's a lot of creativity on both sides.
Both
Sometimes it
sides.
comes
Yeah.
from the donor. Most times it comes from the development officer.
I find it all interesting, right? Creativity comes from both sides, which I think is important, right? You don't want to just give people categories and say you have to fit in this category, but then also you want to allow them to give insight in terms of what is possible for them to support as they grow in their affinity to the university. One thing I want to ask you about, and of course I can't have the One Question Leadership podcast without talking about leadership, is staff, right? You're an intern, you get a position, you start, your responsibilities rise, and at some point you're going to have to lead people, right? And so
Hmm.
tell me about that aspect of your job there at FAU in terms of leading people. I think you have a full timer, you got a couple interns. Tell me about just managing a personality
Yeah,
and
yeah,
directing people to do what to help
yeah.
everybody be successful.
One thing FAU definitely taught me is this the next level of leadership is managing people.
Okay.
Right. Well, you're managing your portfolio, you're managing your donor base, you're managing your season ticket holders. Now you are getting to the point where you're managing sport oversight, where I have coaches that I'm overseeing, and
Okay.
then also in programs I'm overseeing, but also staff members, and
Yeah.
being able to track their success, push them to be more successful and put them in places to be successful. And so being at FAU has really allowed me to do that, and really have allowed me to sharpen my skills. And one, again, as you mentioned, hiring interns and hiring people under me, into our entire staff,
Right.
evaluating what that looks like, and evaluating what success looks like, but then putting them in positions on winning, right? And so that happened to me a lot at Missouri. That happened to me a lot when I first moved here at FAU. And so now being able to assess, you know, I'm trying to figure out the best way of saying this, but just being, the best way to assess them, but put them in key positions to also be successful. And that's one thing I also find is the most important thing at leadership. And I've enjoyed doing that, right? Coming in, bringing in a young staffer, making them come on a meeting with you that you know you're going to close a gift, showing them the way of talking about the gift, showing them a way of the key points that they need to hit with the donor, and then showing them how to follow up with them and close the deal, and then bring the donor in the stewardship cycle, and start showing them how to take the donor through the full cycle, and multiple donors at the same time is kind of where the leadership really lies, and so then they can see your presence and see how you do it from a day-to-day standpoint. So I think leadership is vitally important, especially in the role of development. I feel like you're leading your donor base, you're leading your staff members, you're leading a lot of people, and so this position is full of leadership left and right, and so you got to really want to have that, if you
Hmm.
want to work in development. I think you got to want to lead, and be a part of the leadership team. So
Which is excellent, right? You mentioned sport administration, sport oversight. Tell me about what sports that you oversee.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So I oversee the baseball, and I oversee our track and field program here, our women's
Okay.
cross country, and track, and our men's cross
Okay.
country as well.
So right. So now you're leading a staffer and you're talking to coaches, helping them to find success in their program. Tell me about some of the, for the lack of a better word, tough conversations you've had to have. Because if I understand coaches always want what's best for their department. We need this. If you don't give me this, how are we going to be successful? You can't expect all the results with only half the resource, all the kind of stuff that coaches say. So tell me about the conversations that allow you to help them to be successful, but also tell them, hey, we got to raise the money, or we don't have money for that, or tell me about those types of conversations.
Yeah, those conversations are some of the best here. And I,
Yeah.
I will tell you that because, again, when you're dealing with a school of the size of FAU, right, a group of five program that is on the steady rise. Revenues are growing every year, but you're still trying to compete at a top Division 1 level. And
Right.
sometimes you don't have all the resources that you need. They're not fully staffed from a coaching standpoint sometimes. There's always other areas, and even the Power 5 schools will probably tell you that, right? There's
Yeah.
still always areas that can always be improved on. And so having those tough conversations with coaches, about finding a way. And I think that's why I love being here, and I have loved my experience here, because it
Okay.
really allows you to get into the weeds with coaches and figure it out with them, right? For you to jump down in the weeds with them and say, hey, coach, you need more money in this area. Let's figure out a way to help you. Let's figure out,
Okay.
let me help build a fundraiser for you to raise more money for that. Let
Right.
me make a phone call to someone in the community that I know is connected with another track team, or that has an indoor hitting facility in baseball here, or let me figure out a way for us to come together and get this done. And it's not just about throwing money. Sometimes it's about throwing time and energy as well, And so I've really, really enjoyed doing it. I mean, even the most successful thing here is our track program. Our track actually hasn't been resurfaced um, here in almost over 20 years. You
Wow.
think about this, the way our track look. So I became the track administrator 2 years ago. And so I've been working with my coach, and believe me, every year he told me, Alvin, we got to find a way to get a new track. We got to find a way to get a new track. Like, we got to get a new surface. We need more for our student athletes. And so was able to go out this past year and close a gift for our track program. Close a
Excellent.
$5 million gift with a very prominent family here. I love those donors to death.
Hmm.
They're very philanthropic, very generous, and so she saw the need in what we're talking about. And so I actually at lunch I was able to bring her right over, show her the track. She looked at me and just said, "How much? Like, what do we have to do to get this
Oh
done?"
wow. Yeah.
And
It's
so
got to feel
she
good.
saw the really big need, and then we took her over into our student athlete success center, and we talked about our needs. Right, our coaches is like, Alvin, I want to recruit better. We need to be able to have some more bells and whistles to recruit. Well, now she's also part of that gift is going to go to renovate our entire student athlete success center. And so
Yeah.
now all the programs, all 18 sport programs that are over there, 17 sport programs that are over there, they're able to now reap the benefits of that gift. And so
Yeah.
that's the fun part of development when you're able to go see something that needs to be done, make the ask for it to change, and then actually see, be a part of the process of building it. It's been really enjoyable.
Yeah, what's interesting in terms of what you said there, right? The managing sports part, you had to use creativity sometime to be able to help the coaches get what they need to be successful to serve the student athlete. Then this development hat never really comes off, right? Because now you bring in somebody is okay. Let's get the track resurfaced. Let's help out all the sports with the student athlete
Yeah.
success center. I think that's excellent. I'll ask you one more question here, and then we'll wrap. The industry is all over the place right now, right? And I know donors are probably inquisitive about FAU or just the industry, period. Some of them are in the know. Some of them think they're in the know because they, read the newspapers, something like that. But then they get a chance to talk to somebody like you who's considered an insider and ask questions about the industry. So I wonder about the type of questions you face for donors that don't necessarily have to do with Florida Atlantic, but really about college athletics in general and how you approach those types of conversations.
Yeah, sure. It's name, image, likeness. It was just something that, as I grew up in the area. When I came through and I was a college football student athlete, there was no name, image, likeness. There was no cost of attendance. There was none of those things at the time that I came out of school. And so being able to educate them on the need for it, right? A lot of them just don't understand it. A lot of them just sometimes, for whatever reason, are in their silos, and they're thinking about it in the well, now this is just paying players, and we don't need to pay players, and this is just corrupting the industry, and I wouldn't say corrupting, but I do think in some ways, in some things that they're saying, there is some truth in it. But in the same way, steering them to understand the thought behind it, steering them to understand why it is important and how it's beneficial, and how it's going to allow our student athletes to be successful, and in some ways how it's needed and should have already been done. Right, we're actually kind of behind the ball on this, and what they're seeing is actually catch up, and not necessarily this new processes that. And so that was the biggest question, was name, image, likeness. Is it here to stay? Why is it here? What is it doing? But being able to tell them that it's a resource that we want our student athletes to be the most successful in, because it can benefit us. It can
Yeah.
benefit their lives as well, for them to be able to make money while they're here in school, for them to be able to leverage, their likeness, the things that they built. I'm thinking about myself, right, as a former student athlete. All the time that I sacrificed being in the field and being on the baseball field, football field, in the weight room. Now I'm able to go to a business and leverage it. Now I'm able to go to Dunkin' Donuts and say, hey, I come here every morning. You see me. Would you guys be interested in let's doing a deal, right? I
Yeah.
post a
100%.
couple of
Yeah.
times. You guys, that's amazing.
Feed
That's
me
great.
coffee, bro. We straight.
We great, right? So, but now you're able to do that with a lot of other areas too, as well, right? And so, apparels, brands. There's so many
Hmm.
things I think in college, if we could have been able to leverage it, man, we would have definitely did that, because we were very supportive of the people in the community, the barbecue places, the X, Y, what have you. And so, I think the best part is being able to educate the donors. That's one of the most fun parts. When they start asking you questions about the industry, they start trying to get a little more insight. You're able to start really educating them on the reasons why it's important. Now, today, fast forward to today, name, image, likeness is probably not as big as conference realignment, right? We obviously had the benefit at FAU to just join the American Athletic Conference. Was very, very exciting. Was huge, obviously, just from a TV revenue standpoint, from a TV exposure standpoint, for us just to be able to join a conference. And now the shakeup is still happening, right? Schools are still moving. The future for the American feels, as certain as bright as possible. But for all the other schools, the big flagship schools and all that movement, it is making some donors like, oh, well, what's going to happen? What's next? What is the next 10 years going to look like? And I had a great conversation this morning with the donor, and we went through multiple scenarios of what could potentially happen with conference realignment and how it could impact FAU, down the road, and just kind of just talking about the future. And so a lot of donors love getting into the weeds sometimes on, name, image, likeness, conference realignment, TV money, all these things. They really do enjoy talking about it, and it
Right.
just gives you a platform to share about what's going on.
100%. Well, this has been an excellent conversation. You talk about creativity with donors. You talk about leadership. We talked about management. We talked about resources, educating donors, a number of different things that you hit up on, which I think makes for a great conversation. I really appreciate you joining us here on the One
Yeah.
Question Leadership podcast.
Thank you. Thanks so much for the time. Appreciate it, Ty.
Yes, sir. That was Alvin Hines II. He is the Senior Associate Athletics Director for Revenue Generation at Florida Atlantic. And of course, I am Ty Brown with one question. And keep in mind, the role of a leader is to create and maintain an environment that people want to be a part of. And as always, be better tomorrow than you are today. This episode of the One Question Leadership podcast is produced by Spades Media Group, solving problems using creative leadership.